Viewers, Assalamu alaikum. This is Dr. Aijaz Qureshi from Toronto, Canada, with today's episode of the Daydreamers Show. Today, we have a very esteemed guest, so stay tuned until the end of the show. The show is going to end for 20 to 30 minutes, so don't go away. You're going to hear lots of different things. A very interesting discussion is going to happen, so stay tuned with us. Today, our guest is Mr. Arslan Larik. He's from Karachi, Pakistan. He's international speaker. He give motivational speeches and all those kind of things. He's a certified trainer by ICF, and he's a coach as well. He's a certified hypnotherapist, NLP expert. He's a timeline therapist, and all those kind of things. So I'm not sure how he does all that. Right now, he is in Bangkok, Thailand, and he's having fun over there, I believe. So we welcome him to the show, and let me bring him on. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Aijaz bhai. How's everyone doing? Actually, I'm here for learning as well. Although people do travel to Thailand for fun, but yeah, it's more of learning over here. It's a beautiful city. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, learning never ends. So
of course.
Yeah, and I'm Mr. Learning, as I said earlier. So today we're going to talk about the great topic. But before that, let's hear your story. How did you daydream about what you are today? About that, and how did you achieve that?
Oh wow! Okay, this is fascinating. So my story starts with a sales background initially. So I was into sales primarily. And when you're into sales, you're selling a lot of stuff, you're talking to people, and talking is one of the most favorite things that we do. And then I realized that, while talking, there are a certain amount of patterns in communication, that there's a certain amount of things that we say, and it makes the deal happen. Some people start liking you, people start disliking you. And these patterns became really fascinating for me. And then I ventured into therapy and human behavior. So I started training, I started talking, I started doing stuff, but it was all primarily towards communication. So I think that's what helped me in figuring out what I wanted to do. But there, I never. It was just a dream, as you posted to Daydreamers. It was a dream that I wanted to just be successful. But in what context, I never knew. I started from sales, I ended up in therapy, then with HR, and still goes on. So it's never ending. It's always changing in some perspective or paradigm.
That's great. So at what time in the sales career you thought that you will become a therapist, or you will learn the NLP and all those kind of things? How did that happen? How did you get inspired?
Okay, so the initial thing was that I was in my sales career, and in sales career, we were really going down with sales in one of the organizations, and I realized everybody's facial expressions, they were all down. They were talking about downsizing. They were talking about, company closing down, salaries not being given. And I just stood up over there and I, gave an inspirational speech. I said, guys, we got to do this, our life depends on it. We got to make our impact. And when I started that, everybody was looking at me with these eyes lazy. And then he's like, hey, sure, let's all do it. And then I realized that, words can change lives. It's how you say it and the way you say it and the belief that you put into it. And that was, I think, the turning moment. And I figured out that you could be, people start off businesses, don't they? And when they start off businesses, they're not always, lucky in terms of, setting their scores and everything. But slowly and gradually, when you start and you make your moves, that's when it happens the best, I guess. That's how it started for me, at least.
That's very nice. That's very nice. Yeah, we all get inspired by certain things. And,
of course.
It's all about really thinking what we want to do and how we can really help ourselves. I think that's the thing that we have to really think about, how we can help ourselves.
Indeed. Even later down in our conversations, we're going to talk about certain amount of patterns that we say to ourselves, and that also, make a huge impact.
Absolutely. That's really important thing. So let's come to the topic now. Now people know who Arslan Larik is and what he's up to and how did he get into all this. So let's talk about the topic, which is children parenting their parents, right? The millennial.
Yes.
It's the challenge for everyone because of the technology, because of the social media, because of the electronic media that is penetrating into our lives, into our society, into our communities, through the cables or through the YouTube or Facebook or Twitter, Instagram, all these kind of things, right? So there is a
Sure.
probably there is a disconnect between the elderly people, like on the baby boomers, I would say, or the millennials, right?
Yeah.
So uh, um, how that gap really got created. Let's talk about how the gap got created, and then we're going to talk about how we can address that.
Okay, so I think as a therapist, most of these people over here who are watching this, they would also agree that it's the environment. The basic ingredient is the environment. And how I realized this is that when I was young, my dad was extremely strict. He's a strict guy, you know. So what used to happen is that once he went for going to Hajj, which is like a spiritual retreat, and when he came back from Hajj, you know, at that time I asked my dad, you know, I would say, hey, dad, could I take the car? And he said, sure, son, it's all yours. And that was a huge breakthrough. And I said, "Yeah, how did my dad change, you know, so quickly and so effectively? You know, how has he has just become so kind?" And I realized that it's the environment that makes the entire difference. So that's the first layout that I would want to put in. And then what happens is that people were nurtured. Now, the people in the older age were nurtured in a very different way. So if you all have fathers, parents, and you know that you have at your home, you would understand that they're more about retirement plans. They're more about commitment towards one job and, you know, leading their life into it. I'm not saying about all people, but most of it. And so they had different behaviors. And the generation today is a very fast-moving generation. You know, we want fun, we want energy, we want to do, you know, 10 things at a time. We're multitasking. We're a little bit different. We've got technology to support us and assist us. So what happened is that these two fractions, you know, they kind of like split apart. And now you would be really surprised. Out of every like 10 people that I'm meeting, especially the teenagers and youth, I ask them what's the basic problem that they suffer from, and say that we are not in talking terms with our parents. You know, we can't share stuff with our parents. You know, I had a friend who would, you know, wanted to. Every human being has certain amount of emotions associated with them, and they're unable to express those feelings to their mom and dad, and they would rather seek friends for it. And friends are not that helpful. You know, if you, at the end of the day, if you let's assume this, if God forbid, if you were to go to the hospital and you were to be admitted there for 1 month, one best friend is not gonna stay there for the entire 1 month. It's gonna be your mother. And if you're not in good relationships, you know, it's just going to make the things all the more painful and miserable, I guess. That's how I see it. And that's how I think the fraction gap was created first. It's the environment largely.
Right, right. So environment plays a big role. That has created the gap between the children and the parents. Now,
Yes.
do parents want to really understand the issues and problems or the values of the children that they are facing or they're dealing with? Is there a willingness?
Well,
What do you think?
that's a really good question. I think what we need to do is we need to, you know, reassess this amount of question. Is that because when we're living a life, you know, we live life based on our certain set of values, right? Now, if our value was that, you know, if we're perfect, we're right, we know exactly what to do, then that's where the children are going to suffer, you know. So that's when, you know, parents need to understand that children have their own unique identities. And whereas the children also need to understand, and that's where they lack, you know, confidence, that maybe parents are also fine at their own perspective, but how can we reshape that perspective? How is it that we could talk different to them? So yes, that's an important question to ask, definitely. But we'll go into more questions if you like. I
Oh,
think,
absolutely. We'll go into more questions.
yeah,
What do you
yeah.
think? What sort of education or what sort of teaching should be provided to the parents or by the children themselves? Or do you
Yeah.
think that there should be some sort of institution that should be created, like a school or something, where parents can go and learn and understand the technology better? Because, you know, everybody
Yes.
has their own limitations, etc., things like that. Not everybody is a good teacher or trainer. So
Yes.
what do you think? Is there a need for such an institution?
There is a massive need. I think with the type of stress levels that we have in our society, I think every parent should, seek basically coaching advice. That's what we call. So there are a lot of successful coaches who are working. They're life coaches, they're success coaches, they're relationship coaches, and I think visiting them always helps. But in our society, we see this as a taboo as well. Like imagine if I was going to a coach, that would mean basically that I'm weak. No, that doesn't. All I really would want to advise them is to ask intelligent questions to themselves. We see a lot of speakers, authors, religious scholars, name everyone, they always talk about exploring your inner self first, then to going out to and exploring things. So we're not asking, right amount of questions to ourselves. And that's why the gap is basically increasing. I think every child today should have, three fundamental questions. And surprising, I do this with children. They're teenagers. I ask them, what are the top 10 things that you love about your parents? And they go like, no, we love our parents, but, and it's like a moment of silence. They can't even think of 10 things that they could really appreciate. Yes. So what happens is in relationship now, if you're all, if you have parents and you don't have, maybe you have got disturbed relationships with them, it's also one part of our mind which cannot access a proportion of, why do we love our parents? So that's a good question to ask. Number two is, second good question would be that, if you could sit down and see how have my, parents shaped me, So I recall this child, one teenager came to me for therapy, and he said that I had a father who was really angry. He used to hit me, he used to, torture me, and I felt really tortured, and I developed that grudge. And I said, what are you doing right now? He says, I'm successful. I run a huge enterprise business. I said, well, okay, how did that happen? And when we got into that conversation, he realized that all the things that his father did, it made him more powerful. It's the concept of benchmarking. And instead of hating, he started appreciating and loving it. Dad, if you never did this to me, I would have never been so strong. And it's not easy running businesses. I know of a person who's just came into business, and he went to a dealership shop and he said, I want X number of cars. And the guy said, no, that's not our policy. We cannot give you. He said, I'll pay you whatever money you want. Sir, I think you don't understand the meaning of no. No means no. And he started crying. Now, this is a perfectly guy in 25 years of age. And that's the first time he heard no. So I think some parents are doing really good job, but children fail to realize that because they're not asking the right questions in their own mind. So that I think that's one perspective to it.
So do you think that it falls more on the children to understand what their parents have done for them, or is it more towards the parents to understand and realize the gap and realize the potential in their children and try to come out and help them?
It's both ways, but since today's topic would restrict us to how only children could take up the realization of training their parents.
Absolutely.
So I'll give you a few beautiful strategies that I tried at my house. And so what we're trying to do in today's session is that if you have bad relationships with your mom and dad, we're going to try our level best to make it up to them. We're going to improve them. We're going to, see how we could find midpoints that we could come into agreement. So I'm going to give you good questions to ask yourself, good assignments, tasks, and we're going to work with that, I guess. But yes, parents should equally go into it. I think there's a dire need that parents also need to learn a lot. Handling today's generation is a very different generation. When they were born, our parents, they had no media, so it was, I recall in Pakistan, they just had Pakistan Television Network, one TV station, one radio. It was a very calm life. It was a very peaceful life. We had no cell phones. Children used to go outside, play. We were not worried about them. But now I tell you as a father, I'll tell you why your parents do this. Because I have a son, and I'm scared to send him outside. I don't even have a daughter. But imagine now if people have daughters and sons, they're worried. And we see that worry as being too controlling. Whereas we also need to see the paradigm to it that, maybe they're, that's a sense of responsibility as well. So we need to see it from both lenses. And it's very hard to balance this topic today, but we'll try to focus on, children parenting their parents, though. That's how we'll do it.
So for children, you said that okay, if somebody has a distance between themselves
Yeah.
and their parents, they should
Yeah.
try to bridge that gap. Now,
Yes.
how can they make up to
Oh.
and go by
Yeah.
and talk to, because there could be different things.
Yeah.
When there is fear, I think the fear factor is the number one uh, catalyst in creating that gap, right?
Okay.
Because that's what people do normally, traditionally in our culture back home,
Yeah.
in Indo-Pak, that okay, respect father, his fatherly figure. He comes home, you should be quiet because he's tired. He should be relaxing, blah
Yeah.
blah blah, right? So as soon as the father enters, the whole house goes dead almost virtually, right?
Yeah.
Kids go to their rooms or they hide, and okay, abba ghar aa gaya.
Yeah.
Okay, now what is that? What is that? I mean,
Okay, this is gonna. My answer is not gonna help only the students today right now. It'll also help the business. If you're a businessman, it's gonna help you. If you're also doing a job, it's gonna help you because this answer is very important.
yes,
I think all the children, all the teenagers that you're at home, you need to understand your home as an office space. So in office space, you have got a boss. So at a house also, you have a different boss for different routines. So there's a mother who's a boss of certain assignments, and there's father who's a boss of another assignments. Now, when you have a boss, every boss has a goal. Yes or no? You see?
yes,
So when you have a goal, you need to understand that goal. I came to realizing this when I understood that every day when I come back from office, my mother used to, scream at me. She'd say, "Arslan, you're irresponsible. You won't be successful. You're like this. You're like that. You're this." And there was a list of all 15 things. I realized, and so I was listening. So good listening is really important. You need to understand your mother. And so I asked my mother the question, "Mom, what's the problem? The Arslan, you didn't bring your lunchbox back from your office." And now because I didn't bring my lunch back from the office, there's a list of 15 things that were going on, right? So you need to be very careful. Everybody has their, so my mom only had one goal. My mom's goal was, "Son, just bring the lunchbox back on time." And you just only have to see it, visualize it. And once you fix that, you would realize that your parents love you. Your parents do not demand 100 things. Those 100 things are a demand and resultant of the very few things that we're not listening properly to. I guess that's the thing that we need to consider. So, number one rule that I would say, you go to an office, for example. I'll reshape this. So, if you go to the office and your boss expects you that you need to reach at 9 o'clock a.m. in the morning, and now if you don't reach at 9 o'clock a.m., what do you think would happen? Would you get promoted? Do you think you have any chances of success? No. So
no,
same thing as, yeah. So now at office, we would want to respect that boss who doesn't even hardly care about us. He's more worried about the profits, the company, the organization. But whereas in our own house, which is an office itself too, now this father really loves us. He cares for us. He expects things from us, and we take things for granted. And when we take things for granted, and if we violate any one rule, which is very close to their values or goals that they have set, then you're done for it. And that's from so this is the primitive from where the relationship starts deteriorating, and
right.
starts going bad. I hope that answers the first question.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah.
I think the issue about the conflicts, right? There could be conflicts.
Yes.
There could be
Yes.
different perceptions. There could be different point of views, and everybody has their own point of view, right?
Yeah.
Be it the kids, the children, or be it the parents, right? They have their own
Yeah.
point of view, and by nature, we try to defend our own perspective. We think that we are right, and no
Yeah.
matter if it is, even if it is wrong, right? But we think that
Sure.
we are right, right? Until unless we go to a third party and put up that issue in front of that person and try to get the
Of
advantage,
course.
right?
Yes.
Until that time, we think that we are right, always right. I think that
Yes.
perspective has to change. So this
Yeah.
is with if you allow me to say, I would advise
Sure.
three things, just three
Yeah.
points. If there is a conflict, or if there is an issue, or there is anything about the lunchbox, as you said, or anything of that sort,
Yeah.
it happens in the family. Kid
Yes.
should, now this is, since we are talking about children, children should find out that what the problem is. Identify the problem first.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Ask the parents what should have happened. Okay. Now we identify the issue. Okay. Arslan did not bring the lunch box. Okay. What
Yeah.
should have happened? Arslan should have brought the lunch box back from the office. Okay, that's
Yeah.
fine. How can we fix it? That's the third point that I always ask. And
Okay.
the person is going to come back and say, well, bring your lunchbox every day.
Yeah, of
This
course.
is how you're going to fix the problem. And that's
At
it.
least that solves 50% of the entire, major problem. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And the second thing that I think is also now. Second thing is a little bit tougher. Now, if you have somebody, like for example, I don't know if from the audience, if there's somebody who completely is in isolation and does not speak to his father or parents at all. Let's assume if there's a situation like that.
Yep.
Now, this is where I went into a coaching session, and I can relate to you guys because I've been through this situation. So the coach told me something very remarkable. Human behavior is unique. So what he gave me as a task was that, hey, listen, Arslan, if your father doesn't talk to you, go and press his feet. I said, are you crazy if I start doing that? He's just gonna shout on me. It won't work. He said, Arslan, just go and do it. So that's what happened. I went the first day and I tried, massaging my dad's foot, and he, strongly flickered his foot and he said, get away and stop all this drama and things that you're doing. And then I went to my coach. I said, look, I told you it doesn't work. My dad is crazy. So he said, no, Arslan, look, persistence, One thing that our generation does not understand is the level of persistence that is required. I think that's the only thing missing. Otherwise, I love you all. You're awesome. So next day when I did it again, my father came up with a rebuttal. He said that, oh, you're doing this because you want something. And when you hear this, it's really painful. But then again, I went the third day and, fourth day, the fifth day. After 1 month, consecutively after 1 month, he said, oh, son, could you do it a little bit on the back today also? That's where the tone changed.
The ice broke.
The ice broke, and I think with parents, your older people were very persistent. If you see their personality type, they're very persistent people. They wake up dot on time. Have you ever seen them late? No, we don't see our parents late. Our parents have been very significant and persistent with something. And if you can show that value in yourself, they would start appreciating you and you become in better terms, right? But it's the parents that come, first. I think you should respect them and love them. I think I have 3 more strategies to share also, but if you want to comment on this, if this is clear.
Yeah, so Daniel Baloch is saying, I agree, listening is the best thing in any relationship. Yes. Absolutely, especially the wife-husband relationship. That is important.
I think they'll benefit too from this. So what happens is that I think, let me just put it this way. There are 3 things that you need to do. Number 1 is be progressive learner. So while you're listening to me, if you're talking about children parenting their teacher, their parents, just Google this topic about, and when you can Google this topic about, imagine there are over 100 articles on how children can parent their parents. So this is a self-learning strategy. Number 1, there's abundance of content. We just need to spend 5 minutes every day on it. So if every day I wake up on, and I say 5 minutes, I want to learn on how to parent my parents, in 1 year, I would have achieved, 1% learning would add up to 365% of learning in a year. And that's massive, right? So 1% every day. So learn how to do that. Be respectful. Be very polite and gentle. I'm not saying, we become more arrogant in our way, but we learn and we slowly go. Number 2 is add a sense of human element in it. I'll give you one example. So when I get tired, I go back to my home. And when I go back home, I have issues too, right? So I've had a bad day too. I had a rough day too. I open my apartment. I see my beautiful wife there. I would just go and I would hug her, and I would pick her up. If you're living with your mom and dad, don't do it in front of them. You might get stabbed.
No. There is another question, Arslan. Why did you have to add that adjective?
I'll tell you what. So culturally in Pakistan, when I tried doing it, my father said, "Sharam nahi aati dusre." It was his goal and objective that I had to respect. So yeah, but the point, No worries. But the point I'm making is that understand this: if every day we go back and we give our mother that hug, if we can
Yes,
give her that hug from all our heart and everything, can you just
absolutely.
tell me the smile that she would have on her face? And
Yeah,
my question to you guys is, if you can, even if you have to fake it, let's say Mother's Day is coming, soon. Oh, 10th May is Mother's Day. It's
right.
being celebrated in the US as it is. So when you hug your mother and she smiles, even if you have to fake it, why not do that every day? Why can't we give that blessing? Imagine and ask all those people who don't have their mothers, who don't have their parents alive to appreciate and
Absolutely.
respect.
Absolutely.
So that's the strategy too. Have fun, enjoy it, bring that human element to it. And I think the third thing that we miss out on is have adult conversation. If you pose as a child, you'll always be a child. If you
Yeah.
pose as an adult talking to an adult, that's when you grow up and you mature out and your parents see a sense of confidence in you. I had a recent therapy session and in which there was this kid. So in Pakistan, things are a bit different. You'll have to understand, children over here can't have girlfriends and it's not, culturally acceptable. But I had one boy who came up to me and said, Arslan, I have this really beautiful girlfriend. I can't talk to my father about it. I said, who makes the decision? He said, well, my dad has to say yes before I can, introduce him. I said, why is it that you cannot go to your father and say, Dad, I love this girl. I know you want me to study, but I would not be able to concentrate. I have reached a particular amount of age. I think I'm ready to go into a relationship. So these type of beautiful conversations you feel might not have any impact, but when you talk like this, then dads go like, whoa, okay, my son is growing.
Yeah, that's
Sometimes parents need that realization that they want to understand if the children are growing or not.
yeah.
And so you have to be very expressive.
So
I'll
we have one comment here. It's a long one. It's going to hide our faces, but I'm going to bring it up anyways. I brought it earlier, but I'm going to bring it again. And let's
okay.
read it through. Farzana Shah is saying mostly people think uh, क्या है?
पल पल जाते हैं पल जाते हैं
पल जाते हैं, पल
but
जाते
हाँ
हैं. But parents
but
have a big response. हाँ, बच्चे पल जाते हैं. ठीक है, बच्चे खुद
हाँ
ही पल जाते हैं.
बिल्कुल
Parents have big responsibility in their growth. They have to be they have to work very hard. They need to be their friends at first instance
persons.
and then make them learn things with logic. Yes, absolutely. Parents need to be aware about what their children are doing and then guiding them. बिल्कुल,
Okay.
exactly. आप comment देंगे इस पे?
I would solely agree. I mean, there's so many things that have come up since I've been into therapy sessions. I'll give you one instance. So there was a Muslim family, and there was this boy, and he was the only son in the house. And he grew up, and he said, "Arslan, you got to help me. My parents are really old, and they're still working. They won't leave work, and they're still continuously doing stuff. They're not giving us time." So I basically, went to sit with those parents, and I tried to understand their behaviors and patterns. Uh, you have to, I do understand life is about work and being, very solid to your commitments, but it's also about being, responsible to children's as well. You need parents here. Listen to me out loud. There are a few things that I'm trying to share with you. These are very sensitive, but you need to share your financial standings with your children, right? Even if you come from Islamic perspective, it is first. You need to make your wills, you need to make your deeds, you need to see how the value and the property is going to be shared amongst the daughters. It's not that shadi karwa di bachi ki beti ki to she's done and we're not gonna look at. She has her share in that wealth. You have to see it from the religious standing, from the legal standing. So that's the first thing. Number two, parents need to be there with their children, in order to see what they're going through, what they're suffering from. When children don't get that attention, they go and seek friends. And now, whatever the friend circle they have, that would influence their personality type. So parents have to take that time out. बच्चे ऐसे नहीं पल जाते.
नहीं
And
पता.
most people have a stereotype that it's the mother's responsibility. No, it's not the mother's responsibility.
No.
It is the father's. You have to. The grooming is given by father. Like for example, in Islam, we have this Friday prayers. Now, if the husband doesn't go for Friday prayers, the son would never go to the Friday prayers because mother cannot take him to the Friday prayers.
No.
So yes, mother plays a very vital role, but the external environment where you're showing him the life and outside world and how the dealings are done, the father also has to contribute equally. If unless the mother is very outgoing and she's also working, I would respect both sides to it. But it's the joint responsibility. It's not one-way responsibility. So, but if you are struggling, I highly recommend, these 30 minutes would also be very short for explaining everything, but you can Google out how to parent your parents. And there are over 100 articles on Google, I tell you. There are a lot of videos as well. Learn from it. Just 1%. Read one article a day, maybe half article a day. So introduce this learning practice, and slowly and gradually you'll get there. I mastered also communication tactics to it. So for example, okay, everybody loves going to combined studies. Yes, so they do. Everybody has to go for combined studies. That's a trend now. So when you go for combined studies and you tell your dad, "Hey, Dad, can I go for combined studies?" and Dad would immediately say, "No, you cannot." So as a response to it, you say, "Well, Dad, you're right, sure." And when you say "sure," the anger doesn't go up; it actually comes down.
That's right.
And then you induce language patterns. So you induce a language which is called the steering pattern. You say, "Well, you're right, and I agree that children, when they go out to study, they could be exposed to a lot of wrong things. But because you've nurtured me as a very mature child, I really appreciate you the way you've cultured and nurtured me. So I'm a very responsible kid, and I'll make sure that this doesn't happen, and I'll try to keep in touch." So when you speak their language, now no father would say, "Oh no, I've left my son uncultured." So, of course, he would agree with you, but you need to talk. Break that gap by just sharing some stuff. See what your dad likes. If your dad's interested in cricket, talk about cricket. You need to learn it, even if you hate it. You have to learn it. But you got to see. It's just like a job. Your boss has certain amount of requirements, and it's not manipulating. Don't get me wrong. We're not talking here about manipulating. We're talking about basic human behaviors, which our prophets, our religion, which our society, all the wise people have said. You see, if mama and dad, if they're not happy, there's nothing that is going to be happy. So you need to keep them happy. That's how it is, I guess.
That's really awesome. I would share my own experience with my kids. What I have done to really understand my kids is I do whatever they do.
That's
they play basketball. I follow basketball. I know who plays where, and what is being traded, who's being traded, what points, what teams are winning, etc. I keep a track of the scores, etc. Playoffs, things like that. Everything I know about it.
That is awesome.
My kids used to play, or they're still playing PS4, PlayStation, Call of Duty. I played Call of Duty, and I beat them out, in the game. So,
oh my God, that's amazing. I hope parents.
It's just we talk at the same level. That is important, to be with the same, communicate with the kids at the same level. So that's my contribution towards it, and they do the same. They come to me and talk as a friend. Sure. There is another comment here. I'm going to bring it up. It's going to hide our faces, at least yours, Arslan, but that's okay.
Sure, no worries.
Hina Anjum is saying, I think majority of guys are happy if parents are not close to them. Acha ji, dur hain. The drawn circle around them, they draw circle around them, how these would be inspired or convinced to come closer to your parents, to our parents. This is a big problem these days. She found it around her. So the parents are not around, the kids are just by themselves, hanging around, they don't have direction to go to, things like that.
This is basically, in therapy, we understand this as a conflicting mindset. What happens is that we as human beings, I'll give you an example to this. Let's say if I was born, if I wasn't rich in life, so then what happens is I start, conditioning my mind saying, oh, money isn't that important. Do you understand it? Just to satisfy that, So it's not that people don't want their parents to be next to them, but it's when they have developed higher sense of conflict, then they try to satisfy them by giving that answer. This is a really important question. I think one thing that children should do is focus on reframing positive sentences. So let's say most of us say, oh, I hate my dad. Change that statement to a positive refrain. Yeah, I love my dad. Start saying that 10 times in a day. This really works. I'll tell you how this works. There was a very famous story behind this by Zig Ziglar as well. If you say, I can't do this, I can't start a business, start reframing yourself. Say, I can stay, don't allow yourself to go into the negative belief system, that because it is a negative belief system only.
Yep.
So Zig Ziglar, this is a story. Do we have some time if I can share this 1 minute or 2 minute story?
Yeah, we have 3 more minutes to go.
Okay, so I'll make it really quick. So Zig Ziglar had this woman with him, who said that I'm struggling with my job, and I think everybody hates me in my job. So Zig Ziglar told her, listen, can you tell me 10 things that you love about your job? Now, you just have to replace that with parents, right? So she said, well, it's easy. I don't like anything about my job. It sucks. Okay, fine. Let's start with the basics. Do they give you a chair to sit? She said, yes, they give me a chair to sit. So write down, I love my job because they give me a chair to sit. And she, was told to say 10 things, that you made her practice. And after 1 month, when the feedback was asked, she, so Zig Ziglar called her. She said, how's your job going? She said, oh, Ziglar, you're awesome. You're amazing. The tactics that you shared with me, everyone in my office has changed. So nobody in the office changed. Actually, she changed, right?
Right.
So with your parents also, make positive reframes. Okay, fine. I don't like my dad, but still, who paid for my clothes? He at least paid for my clothes. He paid for my early education. He at least did something nice for me in life ever, So I need to count. I'm not saying, when you're accounting somebody, you should account them for good things also that they did, along with there are a few bad things that happen in life, of course, but also respect and appreciate. So when you appreciate both ends, it balances out, I think. That's the thing that is required.
Absolutely. Farzana is saying being their friend. Yeah, absolutely. It does, Arslan. And Farzana is saying being their friend helps them say from adopting bad company as well. Absolutely. Absolutely. You provide them opportunity and
Yes.
they will be with you. Absolutely. So this is great. I think it has been really wonderful to have you. One thing I'm going to ask you is, I know about NLP is the neuro-linguistic programming. And I'm not sure if you have seen my shows with Dr. Farah Khan or not, but she's an NLP specialist, and she's a Reiki master certified trainer, and as well as she is an awesome personality. But what is timeline therapy? Can you share that? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so it's an extended branch of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming.
Okay.
In psychology, we have a process which is called Gestalt therapy.
Okay.
So it's the exact replica with little bit addition of hypnosis to the process. So what happens is, let's assume it's to treat emotions and phobias primarily. So if I have an emotion like I was really angry, so the best way to cure anger in your life is to go into your timeline, go to the past first event, and if you can treat that, then almost all the events reverse out. So that's what timeline. Timeline is a state of going into slight hypnosis and going back into your time and reshaping the learnings from the past, and that reshapes everything else in the future. So that's the timeline therapy. It was done by Ted James, basically. So Ted James is somebody that you can Google, and you'll have a lot of information about timeline therapy.
Absolutely, I will definitely Google because I'm more into these, these kind of mind sciences, and I'm learning myself as well, by talking to different people, and luckily I'm getting connected with lots of different clinical psychologists and NLP experts, and this is natural, organic understanding that I'm trying to develop here. It's really working out very well. Thank you so much, Arslan, for being with us. What do you think? How was your experience with this show, and what would you say to our viewers?
You see, most people here might have the content, but having people like you, you help us to share our aspirations with everybody else. So the thing that you're doing, I don't know if even one person from the audience got some value from it. I think you're making their dreams come true. So your daydreamer does serve that purpose. So that's a blessing. I'm really inspired by what you're doing. And that's equally fascinating for me as well. Thank you so much. I think it's a great work.
Thank you so much, Arslan Bhai, for your time. I really enjoy talking to you, and there is a lot to learn. I'm sure you're a traveler, you're a very busy person, but again, I would love to have you again on the show in a few weeks again on different topic. Definitely.
We'll definitely catch up. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Bye, ciao.
Viewers, thank you so much. That was Arslan Larik with us today, and he is a great, great person. So just view his profile, go to his wall, and follow him. I would definitely request you will learn a lot from him. He does lots of great things as far as the NLP advises, and the timeline management, and he's a certified coach and trainer. And if you want him to speak, come to your institution, be it college or university, or be it a company or an organization, you want him to come over and talk to you guys, please do approach him or message me, and I can connect you with Salan Bhai. He's a great, great person. So don't miss that opportunity. Please do connect with him. All right, viewers, until the next guest, this is Dr. Aijaz Qureshi saying goodbye from Toronto, Canada, with the Daydreamers Show. As I always say, keep daydreaming. Dream with your eyes open, and you will achieve that. Thank you so much. Allah Hafiz and Assalamu Alaikum.